Okay, now, hey Desmond. So it looks like you have 4 people in your space. I actually think I'm gonna go and turn the recording off on this because we don't need it to be a recorded session. So I'll go and change that. But anyways, there are currently 4 people in your space. You can see that by up at the top of this screen that we're on right now. It says 2 out of 20. And then next to it, it says there's a little I and it says 4. So that just means that 4 people are here in your audience. But anyone can join this area. And honestly, for roundtables, it's easier to just see everybody's face instead of them using the chat. So there's that. I'm going to go turn the recording off because we don't need that. You're muted.
Yep, sorry. So they themselves have to turn on their cameras? Or they can see me now?
You're not muted anymore, but I still can't hear you. But that's okay. I know why. I just have to fix it. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So they have to turn on their cameras in order to see me, right? I mean, in order for me to see them.
Yep, they just have to hit that blue button up at the top that says share audio and video. And that's how you'll be able to see them. If they don't, they'll just be there in the chat space.
Okay. Can they see me now?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Okay, go out.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you all can hear me. If you don't mind sharing your screen so we can have a conversation. Allie, hi. Hi, Allie. How are you this morning?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I'm trying to see why my camera's not turning on.
Oh, no, you're good. Whoa. There you go.
Yeah, I don't know why it won't turn on. That's so weird.
It's Tuesday. It's scaring on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, nonetheless, I may have another person in. I'm not sure.
Well, I looked under the people and it just says you and I.
That's what
I'm
I
not
thought.
sure.
Yeah, my little thing up here says 3, but I don't know. Anyways, shall we get started?
Yeah, hang on. Mary needs help. I'll be right back.
Okay. You're back.
I'm back. Nobody
Well,
else showed up?
no one else is here, just you and I.
Some of the other sessions are the same way. I'm hoping the time change didn't confuse people.
Oh, that's possible. It could have. Definitely could have.
Well, I did mine last Tuesday at this time, and nobody came to mine either.
Well,
Maybe people just aren't 9 a.m. people.
you know, it's possible. Well, what would you like to do? Because I can facilitate this, but also, I mean, we can wait a few more minutes for other people and then maybe decide what we want to do. But you might, I know you might be helping in other areas too. So,
I'm not actually signed up for anything for this session.
okay, cool.
So
yeah, tell me what you would like to do.
I am open.
Okay. We can talk a little bit. You might have some insight on some things that maybe I don't have insight on.
Okay.
So as you know, our session is about COVID-19 adjustments and kind of the idea of what changes have been made because of COVID, and then what has the response been from students and staff, and then some positive interactions that we've been able to like also keep as a result of the changes. So, what successes have you seen maybe during the adjustment to the pandemic in your role at your institution?
I would say that, for example, being able to meet with people virtually, just creates another avenue of communication with people, especially those that at our institution that love to sit in front of their computer all day, don't necessarily want to go out into the sunlight or whatever. And it like gives us a way to communicate with those people and connect with those people. But on the other side, for some people, I feel like they lose the ability to like socialize a little bit, like in person. So it's
Yeah.
got its pluses and minuses, but I like that if someone's not feeling well, we can meet virtually. You don't need to pop in my office or you know.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think virtually, meeting virtually and doing things virtually has definitely been a plus side. Whereas, in times past, we don't think about, maybe it wasn't, I'll say, not that we didn't think about, but maybe it just wasn't something that we went to as an option. It was kind of like, if you are sick, then stay home. Like, you missed today, we'll catch you up later kind of thing. Or even for students who are going to be away, professors have allowed them to Zoom in to class so that they don't necessarily miss class, which helps too, because if you are having to be away for whatever reason and you need to, don't want to lose those attendance points, then you can, Zoom in, things like that. So I think there have been great adjustments during the pandemic. I think, when the pandemic first hit, we were trying all the things. So Microsoft
Right.
Teams and Skype and Zoom, and there's some different institutional things depending on the platform that you use, whether it's Canvas or Blackboard. So using those platforms as a way to communicate. Zoom seems to have won out in a lot of ways. I think just because it's more accessible, maybe, and easy to navigate. But definitely have seen some great successes virtually. I think too, what I've also seen as a success is just the idea of how do you say this? Like meeting, like the appreciation of others and having that time too. So I think when we do meet, whether that's virtually or in person, I think because of the pandemic and having the adjustment to meet, like meet virtually, when you do meet in person, it just seems more like appreciative. People are a lot less, or in my experience at least, people have been just more tolerable, more just attitudes have been different. So those are some successes I think that are important to highlight as we think about those adjustments. Melvina, welcome to our session. We are talking about COVID adjustments worth keeping. And you are more than welcome to turn on your camera to engage with us, or I think you have to share your camera, but share your video, whatnot, in order to just pop up on the screen. But you don't necessarily have to do that. But that'll be the way that we can communicate with you, and you can join in conversation with us. What might have been some possible budget constraints, and how have you addressed the need for COVID safety in your residence halls?
I would say the biggest budget constraints with both money and like people / time is like having to deliver like meals and like mail and all that kind of stuff, and like, okay, who's gonna do it, who doesn't have class, who's available, like, trying to coordinate all that on top of like everything else. And we don't have to do it all the time, so it's not anything that like becomes like routine. It's just like as needed. So it's like, oh, we have to do this thing again. And like, so like, okay, we can do this thing, like whatever. It's not routine. So it's not like a person that just does it all the time. So
Yeah, no, initially we started out doing some of the same things, like delivering meals and who's going to do that and how are we going to navigate that space. Of course, one of the things we did is temperature checks. So we had a temperature machine in the lobby to be able to have people to check their temperatures as they were walking in. I think also asking students to be more responsible. So though, even at this point, we're not requiring masks, recommending that, and then also saying, like, we're doing COVID testing or mitigation testing every week. So if we want to limit some of that, then it probably would be a great idea to wear a mask, or remembering, like, also when your students are coming in, when you have guests, how many guests are you allowing into the building from other places? So thinking about like the need to address some COVID safety. As it pertains to just budgetary items, like we've had to rethink how we do events, so we don't call them programs anymore, but thinking about the way that we do events and how we present information. A lot of kind of grab and go things seem to be a hit, and I think students often like have gotten used to the grab and go. So also they, like sometimes they're more apt to doing the grab and go than they are to doing the in person, like come and join us for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. They're just used to now having the grab and go kind of things, which has also decreased the amount of budget that we've had to spend. So we're not gonna we think about pizza's a big hit for events. So instead of doing pizza, we're doing more healthier snacks and things like that. A lot of people are into healthy things more now, so we can get a lot more for our money. So that is also decreasing budget, or helping us to stay within budget. Which is also helping with COVID safety too, because we're not having to serve things. It's more like in a bag, already ready for you to go to just pick up, and then you can take it. So those are some of the things I think we're doing, or that I've seen done as it pertains to budget constraints and COVID safety. Anything else you wanna add, Allie?
I don't know. Like, we're still doing programming on our campus, but we do have a mask requirement.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like one of the budget things is, in addition to like the temperature machines, like on the little stands are built into the wall and whatnot. We've also got baskets of masks. Like every office like buys masks, so if somebody like doesn't have one or needs a new one or whatever, like they're available everywhere on campus.
Mm-hmm.
because inside a building, every single building on campus, including common areas of residence halls, masks are required.
Gotcha.
And then when we do programs, we kind of do the grab and go thing too, only when we do like an event where like everyone's sitting in a room together, masked and spaced out if possible. Like instead of like a bowl of chips, we have like individual bags of chips or whatever, and things like that. Everything's wrapped, in packages. And when we do like we've done like a lot of like paint nights and things like that, because then people can come and grab the supplies, go back to the room, join the like paint thing like virtually, and kind of still do that together, things like that. But yeah, and we do a lot more events outside now, because outside the only ones that are required to mask outside are students that are not vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
So people choose to do a lot of outside events, which, like, I mean, we're a tech school. We're a bunch of nerds. People don't like to go outside. But we've been doing a lot of more things outside. We do a lot of, like, s'mores nights and stuff like that, because I have fire pits out in back of the building where I live. They're, like, natural gas. Push a button, they light up. So we're doing a lot of, like, s'mores things. And but again, like, all the chocolate and everything is all individually wrapped up. Like, the marshmallows are in the baggies and stuff, so that everybody can grab a little kit and then like do their s'more and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at least people can still like hang out together and like talk and whatever. Because like I feel like over the last like year and a half or so, 2 years almost, like we've lost a lot of that ability to like socialize and get together and get to know your neighbors and things like that. And so we're trying to figure out ways that we can still do that, because like school is hard enough when you're like in a bubble and isolate, and you feel isolated all the time. It's even harder. Like, really affects people's mental health and all that stuff.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with the like being in a bubble. And when we think about the interaction that we have with one another and the need for that, I think one of the things that I've noticed here at my institution is that students, I think, are super excited to be back in person, but maybe they've lost their understanding of how to socialize and how to communicate and how to do all those things. So it's been a lot of relearning those things, I think, too. And also putting some boundaries and helping to bring balance to some of the events and the programming that we're doing, and also being intentional there too. Okay, so acknowledging that the pandemic possibly was hard for a lot of people, and a lot of people have experienced it in different ways, and just the fact that like let's help you to reiterate back into like real life and life after the pandemic. So I think that's super important. Welcome, Deanna. We are having a discussion around COVID-19 adjustments worth keeping. And so we invite you to share your video there. Hey. And you can join in. We're just kind of roundtabling here and having some discussion. So feel free to jump in as you see fit. Right now, we the question that we're talking about is, with possible budget constraints, like how have you addressed the need for COVID safety in your particular department or your particular hall? So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is my first time attending this conference. It's kind of exciting to be here. I think with our institution, I work at University of New Mexico. We did have definitely a lot of things that we were doing when COVID was very high cases here. We are still seeing somewhat of high cases, but because we do have most of our students, I think we are literally down to 3 people who live on campus who are either not they are vaccinated or they have an exemption. And so we're at a really good point. And so we've been able to take some of those like extra precautions. So we were having our facility team clean 3 times a day. So we've gotten back down to the 2 times. And so I think looking at budget and looking at the things that we used to have in, looking at what can we either take a little bit away from and then add it in a different location. So a lot of that has been definitely with our facility and custodial staff of taking that and readjusting it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, there's been lots of adjustments, lots of adjustments in thinking about, we were talking about just a minute ago, how we do programming and events. And so lots of grab and goes rather than, we started out doing grab and goes, but have moved to a little bit more of come and sit in the space, but also thinking about like, even, we spend $50 or whatever on a couple of pizzas, which can be pricey when you want people to come. It's a drawing card, but also like thinking about how do we provide more healthier options. So we've been thinking about more healthy grab and go options, since we know our students love grab and go as their kind of like event and programming. And that also decreases some of the budget. So thinking about things like this, Allie mentioned that our institution, they're doing, they do in-person things, but they've purchased like masks, so they require masks. We don't require masks here at my institution, which is Northern Arizona. It's recommended, but we don't require it. So for Allie, they require masks. So they have mask stations. I'm using the word station. She didn't say that, but mask stations. So throughout campus, wherever they go, they can get a mask if they forget their mask or need a mask. So that's another COVID safety thing that I think when we think about the money spent to do like janitorial services or custodial services, having some of those precautions like masks or things like that in place would help decrease also the amount that we have to spend out for some of those things. So what negative responses to COVID safety measures put in place have you all experienced?
I think just requiring the vaccination has definitely been a negative point for some of our students. Although we've had a high percentage of people do it, I think it's still this moment of not wanting to. We also require masks within our halls. And we've seen a huge amount of incident reports placed in just for masks. And so we're at this weird point of, yes, it's a policy infraction, but like, there should also be a discussion of why aren't you wearing a mask? Like, oh, you just forgot. You went to the bathroom and you just forgot. So I think this moment of conversations of empathy and like, yes, they're policy infractions, but you're also trying to build this community. And if this is a constant like policy infraction only and no empathy moment, then you're also not building your community and you're kind of making it a negative aspect of like, I don't want to even talk to my RA. So that's a struggle that I feel like we've been having. And then I think the adjustment, the students have to actually living with another roommate. Last year, we didn't have roommates. We said one person per room and that was it. And this year we have a really like a lot of students living on campus. It's a healthy number this year. We're at like 83% occupied, which is great. But I think the students having to make that adjustment of like, I only really talked to people online or went to classes like Zoom or a hybrid. And so now to go completely of like, I'm back in person and I have a roommate, and them dealing with those conflicts has been very much a challenge because they're not wanting to compromise. They're not wanting to have those like those conflict mediation points. They just want us to move them. And so those three have been the biggest things that I've seen be big issues for us, and having to us refigure out how do we make this, because of all of the things that happen, how do we make this change and make sure that our students are having a good experience, but also challenging them to show up in that space and have those conversations. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I know we have definitely just been kind of like with the masks, since we don't require them, our students are like, it's great. We don't need to wear masks. But also having that conversation to say, now my specific hall, we're doing mitigation testing. And they're like, well, we hate doing mitigation testing every week. Well, you don't wear a mask either. So, having that conversation to say, yes, you don't want to do this other thing, but then what are the alternatives, and helping students to think through that other alternative too. Like, how do we build that community, and what is necessary to be able to navigate through all of the things and to compromise too, and I think for us, we at one point we're seeing a lot of IRs. And so that's why I think we went to the mask recommended rather than the mask required, because that was just taking up a lot of time with our staff to be able to navigate through, okay, you got an IR because you're choosing not to wear a mask. That was also very exhausting, having to tell students, hey, wear your mask, put your mask on, all the things. And so I think we've seen some benefit to going to the mask recommended, but also, the other thing, like I said, now we're doing mitigation testing. And so students are like, well, I hate doing mitigation testing every week, that type of thing. So just weighing, helping to weigh the options that way. Allie, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, just a lot of the same as Deanna, because we're both in New Mexico, so I believe we both have indoor required masks because we're both state institutions. So it's like, even if people have like a guest in their room, we are allowing guests this semester. We didn't last year. We are this year, but if you have a guest, everyone's got to wear the mask while the guest is there. So we've had a lot of incident reports again as well with masks, probably the most common. And I've had a few people that have had multiple, and I've had them, as part of their conduct, write me a paper, about COVID safety and stuff like that. And then, stuff like that, because it can only be a warning so many times,
Yeah. What do y'all think it has been like, even though we have people who are not wanting to abide by the mask or, mask mandate or the requirement, what do you all, after you have the conversation, let's think about this, whatnot, when do you get to the point where it's no longer a warning, and then what happens at that point?
So typically, I really think our hall coordinators or resident directors, we really have them have a conversation first of what's going on, what happened in this specific situation, and really try to gain an understanding of what's happening. But after that, I think, and in that first meeting, really talking about we are doing these precautions because X, Y, and Z. And Allie already said it. It is required by the state. It's not even because we're a public institution, it's not even a choice that we have to do recommended. It's our universities are all saying you have to wear a mask. So it is completely a larger decision that our universities typically don't have. And so having those moments of here's where we're at, here's why we do this, and really having those conversations. But I have noticed it's a pattern of behavior with certain people. And so we do have to move it in a conduct way, in the sense of, here's what we have specific probation, this is what this means, and moving it up. We haven't had to release someone from their contract, but ultimately that is literally the worst thing that could happen to them, is releasing them from their contract because they're not abiding by the COVID safe practices. So I don't want to get to that point, but at some level and at some point, you're continuing to cause a disruption in your staff, in your students' areas. And so, yeah, we might have to get to those points. So I'm trying to like stay away from that because my goodness, could you imagine releasing someone from their contract for a mask? What does that do to the institution?
We did that with one person, but it was more because it wasn't that they weren't wearing it. They were like belligerent and like on the line of causing like physical disturbances because of it. So with that person, that like just went right up the chain of conduct repeatedly, and to the point where they met with the dean of students and had a hearing and got released from their housing contract because like you can't do that. Like,
Yeah. Lots of things trying to navigate still through COVID, even though we're like 19 months, 20 months, something like that. Who's counting? Nobody cares. No people care. But still, it's been lots of adjustment. And I think too, when we think about adjustments, we're constantly revamping policies and procedures, thinking about like what is beneficial. Where are we spending our resources, whether that's time or money? Is that appropriate? Is that worth it? All of those things. So I think we're constantly trying to balance what is necessary and what is not. Welcome, Marcos. We are just having discussion around COVID-19 adjustments worth keeping. You are more than welcome to share your video and your audio. So you can join the conversation, or you can continue to listen to us and gain whatever and take whatever you want from the discussion. Want to continue in thinking about like what has the pandemic exposed? Let me ask this a better way. How has the pandemic exposed some improvements needed in our particular areas? How has the pandemic exposed improvements needed in our particular areas? Again, when I think about like events and programming around, like with students, I think about the idea of reintegration into like life and real life and what this means. Like you got to talk to people and you got to communicate. So I think it has also showed us a lot of like how we can intentionally think about programming and events. So not just like we're going to have a movie night because you need social interaction, but more like, let's talk about communication skills. Let's talk about what it really means to have a roommate mediation or a conversation with your roommate so that you don't come to my office saying, I want to move from this room because my roommate always leaves the trash out and never takes out the trash. Like, we need to have communication about it. So one of the things we did this year, we had a roommate agreement event where we asked our RAs to think more intentionally about like when you're talking to your residents about doing the roommate agreement, don't just go through it, but let's really think intentionally. Okay, is that really going to work? And then not just having the roommate agreement event at one time, but also as you're having conversations, your one-on-one conversations, getting to know your residents, talk about the roommate agreement, talk about like how it's working or what's not working, and then give maybe some tips on what things can be done in order to mitigate some of the situations that you all are having, so that they aren't coming to you also in the midst of your day while you're busy, asking, can we have a room in mediation or can I get a room change because of all the things. One of the things we struggled with as an institution is we were kind of like overbooked in housing. So we had lots of students who were in temporary housing. So we could not move people as freely as we have been able to in years past. And so that also made residents have to have conversations with each other, because we actually literally had no space to move them. So I think that also gave us an opportunity to think about that process, the roommate mediation process, a little bit more intentionally than we have before. Because again, like I said, like we had no space to move them to. So even if we wanted to move them, we couldn't, because we had students who were in temporary housing. So
we're still doing that right now. Like, we have even our building that we normally had, the whole entire building was like always like super singles, is like doubled up. Like, everything is just, if there can be, we had rooms that used to be quad rooms that over the past 6 or 7 years have just been storage because like we haven't used them. Those are being used right now. Like, we've just got people everywhere where we can put people. We had a waiting list up until the end of the first month of school of people waiting to get into housing.
man,
So so like if a spot did open up somewhere, it got a new person in it right away because of the people waiting to get in. They were like staying in local like RV parks and hotels and everything, just waiting to get in housing. There's nowhere to put anybody. There's no moves unless somebody's just like swapping a space, because there's just no empty spaces.
Yeah.
And then so it'll be interesting to see how what happens for the spring, because we do have not a ton, but several people that are like graduating or transferring, or the normal like bleed off from like fall to spring. And I know we do have a few incoming people for spring, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Um, and as well, I don't know if other people are having the same issue, but we're having a lot of staff that are just having a hard time trying to navigate COVID as well, with being like an RA. So they're like not staying on staff as long as they have in the past. Like, they might be all excited about being an RA, then after a semester they're like, I just can't do this. So that's interesting, because we might have 1 or 2 people between like fall and spring that are staff changes, and this semester I think we have like 6 or 7. So that's a big change for us.
Allie, that's definitely happening here at UNM. I think our staff, especially the ones who were here last year during the peak of COVID, they didn't have as many residents, they didn't have as many issues. And so coming back and coming to a space where we have a lot of students who are living on campus and we're having a lot of conduct issues happen, they are emotionally fatigued and starting to feel a lot of burnout. We just recently started a student staff council and have our leadership sitting in on that and having interactions with our RAs, because there's definitely been a lot of disgruntled moments or lack of for them feeling communicated with. And so the meeting literally was yesterday, and we were all a little bit worried about what would happen from that meeting. But honestly, it was such a great moment to hear the concerns specifically from those students and being able to say, okay, we hear you and we will start to address as much as we can. And I had a conversation of, this doesn't mean we're changing everything, but this will mean that we can communicate better. And there are definitely points. So we are losing staff, and I know normally we don't lose that many, but I think taking this step of like, okay, let's hear you directly, because sometimes having that whole coordinator in the middle, we're not hearing it exactly from the students themselves. And so I think that this will be a good thing. I'm hoping it will be. So yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of things, lots of still, like I mentioned earlier, just navigating, constantly learning what things are working, what things are not working, and how to adjust. I think too, we think about improvements needed in our areas. Just having, I think that's one of the things too, like mental emotional health of staff members has been like a priority. One of the things that you know I lost a staff member in the middle of the semester. We had to redo on call because we had done on call for the whole semester. And one of the things that I did was I let all of my staff members like pick the days that they wanted and the days that were left over. Instead of asking them to pick up additional days, I just picked up the on call for that RA, because again, recognizing the amount of work that they are doing just outside of like all of the requirements that we're asking them to do. But just having the interaction with residents who come to their doors and knock on their doors at 10 o'clock at night when they're doing homework or resting, or are also they're in the lobby trying to study because they're students as well, and their residents are coming asking them questions, like trying to balance some of that stuff. So we're constantly adjusting expectations, constantly adjusting how to navigate through some of these difficult things. Are there any other improvements that maybe y'all think are worth mentioning as we think about maybe we didn't see prior to COVID, but we've seen like we need to start addressing some of these things as COVID has shed a lot of light on? Maybe all of our institutions need to build more halls. Maybe that's number one thing. Brand new halls. We need renovated halls.
Like there's a local elementary school in my town, and we're located, that closed. And the school went and looked at it to think about buying it to turn it into student housing. Like the classrooms would be like little suites or something.
Yeah.
But there's like a lot of like office space in there, and like there's a gym and things like that. So like, well, maybe this won't be like a bad thing. Maybe it'll be like we can like make it like really like interesting and have it be like a certain kind of focus for students or whatever. So yeah, that would help. Because we got to have places to put people. The admissions office wants to increase enrollment, and we're already packed to the gills. So like, what can we do? What can we do to help? I guess we need more space. Let's see what we can do.
Yep.
Yeah.
In these last few moments that we have, want to give you some space to ask or to mention any continual support that AIMHO could provide to your institution as it adjusts to the plan for a post-pandemic future. And I'm gonna take notes for things you might offer.
I guess I'm interested, Desmond, because you said that you have been looking at adjusting your expectations for your staff. So I'm a little interested to hear how you've done that.
So we went to a model called the CARE Plan. Don't ask me what that stands for. Community and Residential Engagement Plan. That's exactly what it stands for. But what we did was we planned out this semester. And so one thing that we continue to do is we ask our RAs to have one-on-one conversations with all of their residents. And then we've given them 8 engagement topics for their like floor engagement events. And they're required to have 2 of those. At the beginning of the semester, we had a ton of alcohol violations and safety issues. So we had people coming in the hall, people were letting people in the hall. We had a few people who were had gotten access to the hall that were not residents and were knocking on doors and soliciting people. It was really crazy. So instead, I had planned for our RAs to do program around an engagement topic, and they had to do it individually. But since we were having so many issues with alcohol and other drugs and safety, I said, we're going to do an all hall program rather than having you all do individual programs. And these are the things that we need to do. So we're going to scratch, I scratched one of their required programming events that they had to do. And we did an all hall, and they could count that as their one program. Another way that I have adjusted some expectation is I'd go on rounds with our students. So instead of me coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning, I sometimes come in a little bit later because I go on their late night rounds rather than their early rounds, because I had half a staff who were new and half that were returners. And I felt like for everybody, I would give everybody the opportunity to just have a one-on-one conversation with me too during rounds, and to also give them some additional support and confidence as they made rounds each night. Another expectation that I had for them was, man, what was the thing? It just slipped my mind. It just slipped my mind. I had another one. But I think like things like that. So in the middle of the semester, I lost an RA, and instead of so I had to split a hallway between two RAs who originally only had one hallway. So instead of asking them to do conversations with their split hallway, I split the split hallway and did half the conversations for them, instead of asking them to do an additional 20 additional conversations. So trying to also adjust in those ways. Also, I'm flexible. I've been flexible with like, okay, we need to put up posters on our bulletin board. So instead of asking our RAs to do that, I've taken on that responsibility too, to just put on some of the. Now I do expect for them to on rounds take posters that are outdated down, but have put up things for them. In our staff meeting, I built in time for us to, we have certain things we do during the year where we pass out like care packages that have like masks and hand sanitizer and things like that. So instead of asking them to do that outside of staff meeting, I built that into our staff meeting time so we can do that together. So just trying to find ways to alleviate some of the stress and strain that they have to do, like, even though it's like 5 or 10 minutes or an additional whatever, that could be time I tried to get back to them. So adjusting some of those expectations. In years past, they would do all of that by themselves, rather than having me step in and do some of that. So I think what I've seen the benefit of that is I think our staff have just been a lot more appreciative. They've been able to work on the team dynamic, which I think is crucial and critical too, as they execute other expectations. So balancing those things. And our care plan is always adjustable. So I try to say to our RAs too, like, if there's something in here that you feel is overwhelming, then let's have a conversation. We don't need to have a conversation in silos where it's during our one-on-one, but let's have the conversation in staff meeting, because if you're feeling this way, someone else may be feeling this way. And I need you all to know that things are adjustable as well, and we're flexible. So always saying that to our RAs as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, that might have been a word vomit of a bunch of things. So I don't know if that was helpful.
I got most of the notes down, so don't worry.
All right. Were you saying something, Allie?
I said I took a lot of notes too while you were saying all that. So
cool.
It was good info.
Great. Are there any other things? Melvina, hello. Any other things that you might have questions about, or Are there ways that AIMHO could provide continuous support as your institution is moving, whether that's slow or fast, towards a post-pandemic future?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I was having mic and video issues last week, and then we just had a mass emergency response on our campus. So we just barely got out of it, what do you call it? Like a drill.
Oh, wow.
So sorry. But as far as us, as far as the pandemic and preparation and stuff, right now we are kind of maybe 50% open. Our campus is still closed to the public, but as of last week, I heard that we are actually going back to opening 100% next semester. But on that end, our campus does mandate masks as well as being fully vaccinated. That is the only way that you can stay in our resident halls or be in family housing. So as far as opening back up to 100%, we don't really know all the details yet. We just know that our halls are going to be going back to double occupancy. I'm not sure how that's going to go because students are so used to being in a room by themselves right now. And sharing a restroom, we've been getting parents calls for concerns for that as well. So it's going to be interesting how this next semester is going to pan out. Me and another colleague, we were saying that we think that it would be better if we kind of waited another semester, kind of kept it as far as one person per suite until maybe next fall semester or even summer semester, we go back to 100%. But it's kind of out of nowhere, we were told we're going back to 100%. So it's going to be interesting how it unfolds. I know we're going to have a lot of parents calling with concerns because that's how it was at the beginning of this semester. So yeah, we'll see how it goes and how we handle it.
I will say there's always this idea of adjusting. So, you learn as you go. And I'm sure, you already know these things too, but things will constantly be under revision as you navigate all the different aspects. Because some things, you think about a ton of things, you think about 101 things. And it's you think about all these things and then people show up and you're like, this is the one thing I didn't think about. And that's the thing that happens. So, you're constantly, adjusting. Yeah.
I think one thing maybe AIMHO could do that would be helpful for people is maybe just having more of these conversations and creating more ways for us to connect with each other. In between conferences and things like that, because it's always good to bounce ideas around and connect with colleagues from around the region and stuff.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
No.
Yeah, I agree.
Gotcha. Well, it has been noted. Any other thoughts of ways that AIMHO could be supportive as we move towards, adjust or move towards a post-pandemic future? Okay. Well, thank you all for your time. Thank you all for contributing to our conversation today. and hopefully something was said or done that we can take back and use in our own respective campuses. If you wouldn't mind, there may be an evaluation that goes along with this roundtable. I'm not sure, but if you see it, could you please fill it out? And do remember that there, I think, is a break after this, so you can use the networking tool here on the side to connect with other AIMHO professionals. So just want to make mention of that. Any last concerns, comments, questions, thoughts you might have?
Nope. Thank you, though.
Great. All right. Well, y'all have a great Tuesday and a great rest of the week. Happy holidays to you all.